So here we are on the draw with a pretty solid hand. I am going to keep, we've got multiple 0 mana cards, the Mox Opal, the Welding Jar, we also have the Darksteel Citadel. So that means that we have the ability to immediately produce mana with our Mox Opal, which may be valuable. So let's see. Oh, we actually drew another 0 mana card. So I like getting going with the Citadel, playing the Welding Jar first, because the Welding Jar can regenerate our other cards. Actually going to get the Springleaf Drum in, because it's kind of essentially free, meaning that we can use the Memnite to tap for mana. So now we could cast Thoughtcast, but rather than doing that, getting a Steel Overseer into play on the very first turn of the game is really strong. And it looks like our opponent may be playing some... Okay. Not sure what they're playing. So, Tormenting Voice, discarding Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Not something you normally see out of, Mountain. That type of start. But we'll see what this means for us. And with more than 4 artifacts, the Thoughtcast becomes free. And to get this Blinkmoth Nexus into play, and what we want to be doing at this stage is making our Steel Overseer pump up as many creatures as we can. So I'm gonna activate the Nexus, put counters on all 4 creatures, and then get in with the Memnite. Next turn we can have a more formidable attacking force. Still actually have 1 mana to spare if we want it with the Springleaf Drum. Dragon Fodder. Okay, so still unclear what's going on the other side of the table, which can happen. But the plating was a fantastic draw step. So we can get that into play. I think what I'm going to do is try to start attacking in the air, because our opponent does have these goblin tokens now. So the Memnite isn't quite as useful as an attacker as the Nexus and the Vault Scourge. And I'm really not too sure what's going on the other side. So maybe we'll see something more worrisome here. Oh wow, okay, this is interesting. So our opponent is going to Indomitable Creativity a Goblin. And that's going to produce an Ulamog. That is pretty sweet. So Indomitable Creativity, you can destroy your own artifacts or creatures and then search for another one. So if you make these tokens, but you only have Huge Eldrazi as your creatures, then you can search for them. Actually have not played against that deck before. That is pretty cool. So it's throwing me for a little bit of a loop in terms of sideboarding. I believe that Grafdigger's Cage stops the creativity. So I'm definitely going to board that in, seeing as our opponent seems to be a combo deck. The Spell Pierces seem pretty good as well. Dispatch, that actually exiles a creature, potentially, so we want that as a potential answer if our opponent does get one of those Eldrazi into play. We could go with the Aether Grid as a way to ping away some of the tokens. Don't think we need Etched Champion necessarily. Master of Ethereum hits a little bit harder if your opponent doesn't have a lot of removal, then the Master of Ethereum is normally going to be better situated. So I'm not going to board in the Aether Grid for this game. We'll see how things go. Wear Tear, another potential card. But we actually are in a spot needing to cut a couple cards already. So we don't know if our opponent is going to be boarding in artifact removal, which means it's kind of unclear how good these welding jars would be. I'm just gonna take out a couple of galvanic blasts. It makes our closing speed a little bit slower, being that we can't just throw 4 damage at our opponent's face. But at the same time, the welding jars being 0 mana card can help with our explosive starts. This is a keep. Just having the explosive signal pest draw, our opponent is gonna have to, we don't know if our opponent has access to a sweeper like an Anger of the Gods type card. We're hoping not, because our hand is very vulnerable to a sweeper or some type of fast combo, but at the same time, it's a pretty good hand. So we're not doing anything on turn 2 in terms of attacking as of right now, but on turn 3, we can get a bunch of creatures onto the battlefield. So I'm going to put this Springleaf Drum into play. Maybe our opponent responds to this. We'll see. Spawning Breath is going to be the spell. That's actually a sweet one. So that is going to kill our creature and our opponent gets a spawn, which they can use for the creativity. That's pretty cool. Luckily, we haven't committed our Steel Overseer. We're hoping that does not get hit by a removal spell for sure. But the signal pests get worse the less you have of them. With 3 in play, the damage can add up, but we no longer have access to one of the ones we had. So our opponent's going to discard some of these Eldrazi's. They're not planning on casting them, so Emrakul and Ulamog discarded with that Faithless Looting. But we have to be worried about next turn. I mean, so it's going to be a real problem if our opponent can creativity on the next turn. We can try to get in some poison damage. But yeah, so I think we want to try to poison our opponent. So let's activate this Inkmoth. And we want to also cast the Steel Overseer this turn. So if we get in for 2 poison this turn, I think we can actually potentially win through the creativity in the air with the Inkmoths, assuming that it's going to be huge Eldrazi creatures without flying. Did we see a flying Eldrazi? Well, I guess we'll see. Alright, so here's... Oh, this is going to be different. Okay, so it's Madcap Experiment. That could be really bad news. So, Platinum Empyrean is going to be the pickup for our opponent. Huh. Okay. Well, we still have these Ink Moth Nexuses, so we can just activate those, and I think we can just go ahead and go for lethal through the Platinum Empyrean. And so as you can see there, the poison still takes effect, and even though our opponent had the Platinum Empyrean in play, we were, which is a situation that doesn't come up that often, but we would have lost to Platinum Angel, but as it turns out, these Inkmoth Nexuses are going to be able to get through a Platinum Empyrean, so we can simply poison our opponent out, and that's what we did. So